Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Hello? Hello.
Oh, Jerry, you're here.
How are you?
I'm here, Mayor. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Ran just a little too long. Okay.
All right, Jerry's going to lead the meeting, but I'm just going to start with a short introduction. For those of you who might not have met me before, my name is Tom Murphy, and I am the mayor of the Village of Mamaroneck. Thank you all for volunteering for this. This is going to be, I think a lot of you know that this is something that was mandated by Governor Cuomo in an executive order to every community that has a police department to look at its rules and procedures and to figure out how we might better serve the public and how the public might better understand how police departments work, and to address incidents of bias, potential and real, and to have the feeling that the police department is more in tune with the community. So that's why we're here. I would have liked it if we could all meet as a group, but COVID is preventing us from doing that. I think it's easier to collaborate when we are all together and we can talk to each other and get to know each other in person. That being said, let me just go over some of the ground rules. Is that I think everybody has to afford everybody else the opportunity to speak without interruption. Jerry is the Chief Executive Officer of the village. That's why he formed the committee, but he has asked me to chair this, and I'm happy to do it. I think that the most important thing we get out of this, besides, hopefully a better understanding of the police department, how it functions and how it can improve, is the beginning of a dialogue. And all dialogue starts with listening and trying to be respectful to each other. There will be hard issues that will be tackled here. There will be difficult conversations, but let's try to remember that we're all working toward the same goal, and we all have the same view of the Village of Mamaroneck, that we want this to be a place where our police, where our residents feel that the police are working for them, and where our police can do the job that we're asking them to do in a safe and respected by the community manner. And that's where we want to go with this. There'll be time for everybody to speak tonight who wishes to speak. This is the first of a series of a lot of meetings, and the public is going to be invited to participate. And we will be looking at the rules and practices and procedures of the Village of Mamaroneck Police Department. We'll be talking about the impressions people have of the police, and I think it's important to bear in mind that the impressions that people may have of the police might not have been born of the Village of Mamaroneck Police Department, but they might have been born of growing up in the United States of America and being a person who has been of a class that's constantly singled out and oppressed. And that does, and if you have that experience, it's hard to differentiate between police departments. So with that being said, Mr. Barbario, you want to begin?
Sure. So I'll pull up the document that everyone must have received the agenda. So I will not put that up, but I wanted to start off. Hold on, let me just grab that agenda. With introductions. Obviously, at the bottom of our Zoom screen, everyone has their name listed there, but I just wanted to provide the committee, since we're brand new and many of us have not worked together in the past, to be able to provide some introductions and maybe just a very brief 3-4 sentences of what you hope comes out of this committee and the police reform and reinvention plan. So what I'll do is I'll run down on my screen and call your name. And if you could just provide a little bit of your background. I'll start with, I've been here in the village. I was hired at the end of January 2019. I grew up on Long Island. I have a brother who is a retired New York City police lieutenant from the Emergency Services Unit. I have 4 cousins who are police officers, 2 of which are sergeants in the New York City Police Department. My family is, I'm first generation. My family came here, my parents came here in the 60s and raised 4 children. My sister, I only have one sister. Her husband was an EMT for Nassau County and was killed in Iraq in 2005. So service is a big part of my family and a big part of what we've become here since Italian immigrants decided to settle in New York on Long Island. I have a couple of degrees and a lot of experience in municipal government and in county government. And so I'm hoping that I can bring some of that experience to the committee and not just be the moderator of the committee. We'll start with Mr. Scott Leonard, please. You're on my top left.
Got it. How are you? My name is Scott Leonard. I'm a resident of Mamaroneck. I've lived here 12 plus years, but before that in Westchester as well. Married, 3 kids, 2 have graduated high school and college. 1 is in middle school. Like the community a lot. I heard about this program and just want to be part of the community and do what we can to make sure Mamaroneck is and stays a good place. And I'm open to hearing ideas.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ferraro.
Hi, I'm Barbara Ferraro. I'm the superintendent of schools in Rhinebeck, and I grew up in the Bronx, have been working here in Rhinebeck for 30 years. Prior to Rhinebeck, I worked in New York City schools. I'm here to help the community, and I feel a part of Rhinebeck after 30 years. My roots are here. I hope that we will have better communication and increased communication, which will help us achieve the goals that were outlined by the mayor. So thank you.
Thank you. Jarrett Winchester.
Yeah, hello. I'm 47-year resident of the village of Mamaroneck. I went to school here, volunteered here. I work here, still live here. What I'd like to see come out of this is more transparency and a better police department. Just that simple.
Thank you.
Yep.
Danielle Gilliard.
Hi, I'm Danielle Gilliard. I'm the Human Resources Manager for the Village of Mamaroneck. I've been with the village for a little over 2 years now, and this last year I've been in the capacity of the Human Resources Manager. I was born and raised in the Bronx. I currently live in Peekskill. My husband is a retired NYPD police sergeant. I have 1 little boy, 13-year-old in the 8th grade, so he keeps me busy. And I've worked very closely with the police department in the village of Mamaroneck, and I know that we have a strong relationship, and I'm looking forward to expanding that relationship out into the community and hopefully providing some additional resources that have been overlooked for a long time. Thank you.
Thanks, Danielle. Lieutenant DeRuza.
Hi, good evening, Lieutenant DeRuza. I am also a first-generation American. I was born and raised in Mamaroneck. I have been here with the police department for 17 years. I am provisional chief effective December 1st. I will be taking over the department. And I am looking forward to working with everyone to make the department even better than what it is.
Thank you. Leahy.
Hi, I'm the present chief, the outgoing chief. Law enforcement for 30 years. I've been your chief for 10 years. We're looking forward to this. I think that we have a good relationship with our community, and we're hoping to build on that.
Thank you. Mike Anderson.
How we doing, Mike Anderson? I have lived in the village of Mamaroneck since I was 5 years old. My fiance and I both went to Rhinebeck High School. I'm currently a labor and employment attorney, and I represent several PBAs in Dutchess County and Orange County. I was a criminal justice major in college and a sociology minor, so I have some insight as to criminal justice systems and how they work, and obviously with the PBA. And I really just think it's important for the community to trust the police and everyone in the village. And I hope we do and that we continue to. So thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Murphy, you're next on my screen.
Okay. Well, as I said, I'm the mayor. I was born and raised in Manhattan. I grew up on 25th Street and 9th Avenue. Like Jerry, I have many relatives who were police officers. My godfather, my Uncle Pete, who was very influential in my life, was a World War II hero and then became a decorated police officer. I had an uncle who was the chief of patrol for Manhattan. So I've grown up with a lot of police officers in my life. I grew up in New York City at a time where there was a lot of crime, where there was, I lived through the era of Ford to New York, drop dead. New York almost went broke, and they were laying off cops and firemen and sanitation workers. And at that time, you could be in serious trouble and have to wait 20, 25 minutes for the police to respond. When I moved up to Mamaroneck, one of the selling points for me on Mamaroneck was that I knew if I called the police in an emergency, or if my children had to call the police in an emergency, I knew that there would be a response within 1 or 2 minutes. And that has been the case. Hopefully there won't be any more emergencies, but that has happened. But I'm looking to improve our police department. I have a lot of respect for the men and women in our police department, but I also know that there's no perfect situations. I know that there are people who have felt aggrieved by our police department at times. And I think that we all want to work toward a situation where that's not happening. And I think that, this is an opportunity for the police department and for all of us to hear views that are divergent and that will hopefully allow us to begin the process of seeing through somebody else's eyes and trying to walk in somebody else's shoes. I think that's where, a lot of the healing will come from. I know that, I'm a middle-aged white man, and I don't have the experience that a lot of people have had in life, and that demographic has given me privilege in some ways. Although you wouldn't know from looking around my apartment, but I do understand that. And I think that, like I said before, I'm looking to have a better police department, and I'm looking to have better relations between the police department and the residents that they serve. And hopefully getting some good ideas that we can implement to make this a better community for everybody.
Thanks. Mr. John Gitley. Oh, you're muted, John. You got to unmute.
If I unmute, you may never shut me up again.
No, that's good. Yeah. No, I have powers. I can do that if I need to.
Okay. I'm a retired political science professor from Purchase College. I've been a resident of Mamaroneck since 1986. Have been a member of the board of the then Hispanic Resource Center, now Community Resource Center, since shortly after it was formed. And I was president of the board briefly in the middle of the difficult decade of 2005, 2006, 2007. My experience with the police is my experience from a distance looking at the police is really limited to two very traumatic periods. The period of conflict here in Mamaroneck 10 years ago, which I do not think is necessarily representative of the police, and a study I did of the use of deadly force by the police in Santo Domingo and the Dominican Republic for the Washington Office in Latin America. Both convinced me of one big thing. You can't understand the problems of any police force separate from the problems of the society in which it is immersed. They are very often a reflection of society mediated by the political leadership. And I hope we can bring that in. I don't expect this is a discussion that will lead to broadly based conclusions and agreements, because I think there are lots of differences. I hope what it will help us do is understand the different points of view that are involved. Thank you.
Thank you. Robert Spalzino.
Thank you, Jerry. I'm the village attorney of the Village of Mamaroneck. I've been the village attorney since I think it was March or April of 2017. I'm an attorney in private practice with the law firm of Abrams, Fensterman in White Plains. I don't live in the village, I live in Mount Kisco. Before I was in private practice, I was a judge for 9 years, 5 in the Supreme Court of the State of New York and 5 in the Appellate Division of the Supreme Court.
Thanks, Bob. Brian Williams.
Hi, my name is Brian Williams. I've lived here in the village for 8 or 9 years now. Prior to moving to the village, I spent 7 years in the Coast Guard. I did basically everything the Coast Guard does, from working on a ship in Alaska for 3 years. And then I was transferred back here to New York, where I worked in New York City doing counterterrorism and law enforcement. I've been a EMT for Mamaroneck EMS, and I'm currently a firefighter here in the village. I graduated from John Jay with my degree in emergency management from there.
Thank you. Lauren Perone, Ms. Perone.
Hi, yes. I was born and raised here in Mamaroneck. I'm actually second generation. My father moved to the village when he was 5 and spent a long time involved with the village politically and was a judge in Westchester. My husband is a West Point grad and spent 8 years active duty Army. I myself am a current JAG officer in the United States Air Force. I serve as a major. And when my husband left active duty service in 2015, we could not think of a better place to move to. The world was our oyster, and we wanted to come back here for a lot of reasons. I'm a graduate of Mamaroneck High School and the whole school system all the way through. You know, I'm hoping to be able to bring some different insights to the table with regard to not only my legal background, but my legal background within the military, which I think has a unique aspect to it with regard to our own internal sort of self-policing and enforcing and building community trust, both inside and outside of the military. So I think that hopefully will be helpful to help us to keep the trust we have in our police department and also build upon it. And I interned for Judge Spolzino when he was an appellate.
Thanks. ADA Adamari.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Cindy Adamari. I'm with the Westchester County District Attorney's Office. I've been with the Westchester DA's office for 12 years now. I'm currently the branch chief of our Rye branch, which we service 7 jurisdictions in the Sound Shore area, one of which being Mamaroneck Village. I'm currently serving on 5 committees, police reform committees throughout my jurisdictions in the Sound Shore area. I'm here to serve in an advisory role. I can't vote on any policy, but I'm happy to help in any way that I can and to offer any insights if anyone is interested in how some of these other committees have been moving along. They're at various stages so far.
That's great. Thank you. Dr. Shaps.
Yes, good evening. Dr. Robert Shaps, Superintendent of the Mamaroneck Public Schools. This is my 11th year superintendent in Mamaroneck. Prior to that, I was superintendent in Hastings on Hudson for 4 years and superintendent in Manchester by the Sea, Massachusetts. I hope to just add to the conversation to find ways to strengthen cooperation, collaboration, and a clear sense of purpose for our police force and our community.
Thank you. Sharon Torres. Hi.
Hi, Sharon Torres. I've been in Mamaroneck for just over 10 years. And I'm more on the business end. So I have my MBA from Pace University and I am a Chief Human Resources Officer, now working in the social services arena in New York City, where we are currently embarking on more of an anti-racist lens to how we work. And so I'm looking to participate and understand more of what we do in Mamaroneck, understand more about our police department, and get some of those comparisons sort of for what we're also doing in the city.
Thank you. Ms. Saul, Theodora Saul.
Hey everyone, I'm Theodora. I've been here 20 years. I have one kid left in the school. I have one kid in college. I grew up in Manhattan. I was an academic and working in international human rights, mostly in the Middle East for 10 years. Then I went to law school and decided to save money on airfare and become a public defender in New York. I started out in the Bronx and now I'm a public defender in Queens. And I've been there for, I've been a public defender for almost 25 years. I'll tell you one short anecdote, which is that I would say that when I was at the end of law school and studying to be a public defender in training, I was probably kind of hostile to police. But then once I started cross-examining police officers, which I have done many, many times, I started to see some very brave, very honest officers take the stand from time to time and really just tell the truth, not try to win a case, not try to lose a case, just absolutely tell the truth. And the more I saw it, the more brave I thought it was. So the good cops have all my admiration. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Janet. Hi, Janet.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me here. So my name is Janet Rolon, and I work at the Community Resource Center for over 16 years. I don't live in Mamaroneck, I live in Ossining, but I feel myself as a Mamaroneck resident for all the years that I work with the community. I am an immigrant myself, and what I look forward here is a better police department, and also to improve the relationship between the police department and the immigrant community. Thank you.
So Janet, what is your title at the CRC?
I am the Deputy Executive Director.
Thank you. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I think I have everyone, and I appreciate that very much. What I want to do is, we've had a couple of emails today regarding policies and procedures that other communities have put on their website. And what I thought would be best is to be able to have the chief and our lieutenant to be able to discuss what they're comfortable with, what the administration of the village is comfortable with as far as putting out in public. And that's really what I wanted to have this first discussion about. I'm not exactly following the agenda, but I'm trying to work through some emails that came through today.
I had a discussion with the chief this morning, and we talked about releasing the policies and procedures that lacked tactics. And Chief, you correct me if I'm wrong. So hopefully by the next meeting, everybody can have that information in front of them, so that we can have discussions about that. Chiefs and acting chiefs, is that correct?
Yeah, mostly. So what we're doing now, we've been going through the accreditation process for, it seems forever. Resources, different incidents that took place. For whatever the reason, the process was sidetracked multiple times. With that being said, now the police reform has come forward. We are looking to ramp up that effort and to become an accredited agency, which is a big part of the governor's executive order. With that being said, we're going through our policies to make sure that they comply with the accreditation board. We've got several policies that are done, whereas we feel that they will meet that criteria that the accreditation board has put forward. But we still have a bunch of old policies that we have yet to get through. We're comfortable putting out to the public the accreditation, the policies that we've completed, and we'd like to hold on to the ones that we have not gone through yet. We don't think that, we think that that would kind of be a waste of time because we know that we have to make some changes to some of our policies.
So can you forward us as soon as you can the policies that you have for accreditation? And as you finish a policy for accreditation, then forward that to us?
Certainly. The only thing I would ask, the only thing that I don't want to do is anything that has a tactic. And the majority of our policies are not going to have tactics in it. But off the top of my head, there may be a few in there. But yeah, as soon as we're done, as soon as we feel that we've met the accreditation standard, we could certainly make that public and we could post that.
Nope. I'd like to know what was on the website that was previously taken down. Can someone answer that?
I can't. I don't know what was on the website as far as policies and procedures. I don't know of anything that was on the website.
The police manual was not available on the website?
As far as I know, I don't remember that.
I don't remember that.
My understanding was something was recently taken down.
I could check tomorrow with Sally because she would know, because she's in charge of the website, but I honestly, Miss Saul, I don't remember that.
We don't have an electronic.
And I go on the website a lot.
So
we don't
just
have an electronic version of it. I don't think that was, it couldn't have been posted.
There wasn't a link to it or something?
We do not have an electronic version of it.
I see. So the police department is following some form of police manual, correct?
Oh, yeah.
A written document?
Correct.
And where is that document?
At police headquarters.
And that's at the village police office, right?
Correct.
And that's available to the public, correct?
We just went through that.
No. You're following one now, I hope, and you are going through policy by policy to make sure there's no tactic involved and make sure that it will be judged as compliant when you apply for accreditation. But we don't know how long that process will take, either for you to complete the policies or for you to be accepted and accredited. So in the interim, and for all the years up until this very moment, there must be a document which you are following, correct?
I believe we answered that already.
So the answer is yes, but no, or yes, but we can't have it?
So it's yes, and we're going through it. And once we feel that that policy has been updated to meet the accreditation standard, we will publish that.
Okay, if I see a police officer doing something that I think probably violates the police manual and I want to file a complaint about it tomorrow, how do I cite which portion is being violated?
So you don't have to cite it. You just have to bring it to our attention and we will do the investigation.
Okay. I'm pretty sure that's falling short of the basic requirement that there be an available document which the general public can access.
So we're just starting this process. That's what this process is about.
That is the end game, Ms. Saul, is having a document available.
No, the end game is accreditation, as I understand it.
No.
This
The end
committee.
process that we're going through now with the collaborative is to have a document available to the public. But we're not at the end game. We're at the beginning of the game.
Right, I want the document now.
Okay, that's understood. Thank you.
I am going to foil the document and you are required to provide it. So why, this is silly. You understand you're playing a verbal game. There is a document, you are modifying and revising it for purposes of accreditation, as you've told us. And potentially scrubbing it for any what you would view as tactics, which might perhaps make police vulnerable in some dangerous situation. But other than that, there's a document which you clearly have to abide by. It actually is not just the teachings of the fathers unto the sons as they go through the academy way back when. There is actually a physical document which you must refer to, and officers can refer to in all different situations in order to understand how they're supposed to react in certain situations and understand what the particular policies are. It can't be committed just to memory. So while you're still working on it and making it even better, there's a current version that's being followed, and that's the one I believe should be accessible to everyone. Your Honor, do you have an opinion on this? Or Your
Listen,
Honor?
we're not in a courthouse, and I don't know why you're cross-examining the chief of police. That's the end goal here. We're going to get the policies. It was explained. We're going to get to the correct policies, and they're going to be released on the website. That's the reform committee. That's why we're here. Whatever they're following, the officer, when someone comes in with complaint, they go and they check and they see, okay, what do we do here? What step do we do here? That doesn't have to be released to the public, and that's kind of what we're getting at here. So you could stop cross-examining the chief of police. This is a collaborative. We, the group, the reform group.
All right, let Chief, give us what you have, and if you're comfortable, give it us tomorrow, and then we'll work on expediting the other stuff.
Excuse me. Excuse me?
Go ahead.
Yeah, look, you guys have given us a bunch of stuff to read. You've given us the PBA union agreement. You've given us the crime statistics for the last 4 years. You've given us an 08 Bratton report. In 2008, Bratton recommended, and that with the conversation of then Chief Flynn, that you were going for accreditation. It's now 12 years since that has happened. Okay, and we're not accredited. If you look at the website, it cites accreditations, but not accredited. The word play is funny because right underneath that, it says the policies and manual. So you go down a rabbit hole to find out what the accreditations are and to come to realize that there's really only a handful, 25, 30% of the departments are accredited. Now, again, I agree with Theodore Saul. We're not asking for any kind of tactics, but what you currently have is what you currently are going by. Any modifications you make to get accreditation are it's like gravy. That's even better. But part of it is going over your current policies. And so I think being a 17-year member, Lieutenant DeRusa, Chief Leahy, you've been department chief for 10 years. I think you two are capable by the next meeting just to come up with the things that you can release that are current. And then whatever you're working on, you work on. I mean, again, this is not to see what you're doing wrong. This is to see what we can all work together to make better. And I'll just give you one example and I'll step out of this and listen. We had an incident in the Harbor Heights a couple of years ago where it was a collaborative, the ball was dropped, clearly, okay? What have we done to rectify that? That should be in your policy. That should be something that the Village of Mamaroneck can see that, okay, that situation ended horribly, but we now have a better way of taking care of that. And that's all we're asking right now. At least that's all I'm asking.
I think part of the problem too is that it's hard to decipher what is actually being followed and utilized at the moment. I understand that you're trying to update everything and maybe part of it is because it's aged and what's written down isn't what's actually being done and you need to rectify all that, and that's completely understood. But I also think from a visibility standpoint, we're not saying that you're trying to hide anything at all whatsoever, but by not releasing what is there and what's available, obviously excluding tactics and whatnot, there could be a perception that there's something to hide. And I'm not saying that there is, but I think if we're going to be able to have these conversations openly, there needs to be as much transparency as possible. And I think that's kind of where the concern is coming from.
You know, I think maybe one of the ways of doing this, and, you know, I'll have this conversation, is to have them point out which policies are under review and where we are now and why it's being reviewed and where you ultimately want to go. Because I do think that, you know, we we can't have half a loaf. So, let me have that conversation with the chief and the village manager and Mr. Sposino. But I understand the concerns that have been raised here. And we'll try and work out an agreement. Okay?
Next item, Mayor, on my agenda is the December and January ad hoc committee meetings. So let me apologize again for the issues and problems that we had at this meeting. It was unintentional, but what was suggested to me, and I thought was a great idea, was to have to set up a platform like a Sign Up Genius or a doodle.com, if I'm using the correct name, so that we would send a series of dates to the committee members and see which dates are actually best. Oh, I apologize, Elsa, I just see you pop back on. So we did introductions, but I'll get back to you as soon as I'm done with this. I apologize for that. So we have two public forums scheduled, one on December 1 and December 10 at 7 p.m. for members of the public to provide what their expectation is from this committee and the plan that's mandated by the Board of Trustees. That meeting will be run very different in fashion from this meeting, where people will have several minutes to say what they need to say. I will have a staff member take down notes. Of course, it'll be recorded. And then we will provide that transcript to you in the event that you can't be there. Obviously, committee members are members of the public, so they can be there and they can provide whatever they need, whatever they want to say during that meeting. But there will be 4 dates that are distributed to this committee in December and 4 dates in January. Please provide which dates are best for you, and whichever dates, the 2 dates in January, 2 dates in December that are best, then that will be the next meeting of the ad hoc committee. Elsa Rubin, I'm sorry, we did introductions and I didn't see you on, but now I see you back on. So if you could just say a little bit, introduce yourself and say a little bit about what your expectation is for being on this committee.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I was having difficult problems with
That's
the
okay.
connection. I have been my name is Elsa Rubin. I have been living here in Mamaroneck for 30 years. I have served in many capacities to the community. I've been in many committees and I have been in many organizations, non-for-profit organizations. And my goal is to form a very cohesive plan and work with everybody in good faith. And I come here with open mind to listen to everybody and to try to work something out that will work for the community, because our common goal is to better the community, to better the village of Mamaroneck. So thank you, and I'll continue listening.
Thank you.
Thank you all
very much. The next item on the agenda is an open discussion. I believe we've already had an open discussion. Some items, but if we want to continue to have some open discussion, we want to, on the agenda number 4, staff assignments. So what I want to explain to the committee and some of them, some of the members, there's a few people on this committee that I've worked with in the past on other committees, but I am the staff committee member for this committee, even though we have other staff members. So when you have a request regarding something that you're asking for, something that you need, anything of that nature, just direct it to me and I will provide to the best of my ability what I can get you or what I can answer or anything of that nature. So I just wanted to make sure that staff assignments come to me as the staff member. As far as the other item, we do have a web page that we've started on the Village Mamaroneck committee, boards and committees page, where this ad hoc committee now has its own page, which we will continue to populate. going forward as we provide more documents and potentially create some drafts. And then before I return back to number 3, open discussion, the Village Board of Trustees Police Reform and Reinvention Plan is a specific document which I will bring up and I'll explain. I think many of you have received it, and it is something that I presented to the Board of Trustees to get their impression of what they thought of it and whether we could move forward with it. I'll share my screen now and provide that. And so the timeline, if you can see the 2-page document here, the timeline is a little off because I was not in attendance at the October 26th Board of Trustees meeting. But if we go back here to November, I did have to, unfortunately, but it worked out fine, hold 2 public forums, which will be in December, not in November. They'll be, as I said before, December 1, December 10. Sometime during the month of December, I expect to maybe develop some draft points and information, maybe identify some issues and provide something to the board where we can bounce around and board members. So what I'd like to do, and I'd like to explain to the board members, is that when a plan or something of a draft document is distributed, and you have some changes, you have some recommendations, you have some things of that nature, just send it to me and not to the entire board, because I'd rather not have an impression that we're a committee by email, where you can send items to me and then I would potentially bring that forward or revise the document for when we do convene as a board. So if you could just do a one-on-one exchange would be very good. As far as the December meeting, so if I can explain a little bit about the public forum. So the public forums, as I explained, were going to be a timed interval where individuals can sign up, can attend the meeting and can speak. But we will also have, or I will ask the board's consideration, the mayor's consideration, to provide some time during the Board of Trustees meeting at either one of the communication to the board. We have 2 of them, one in the beginning and one at the end, for individuals to speak about the upcoming plan that the board is charged to provide. Hoping that we can do that in December at the 2nd December meeting, and then at the 2 January meetings and at the 2 February meetings, where we could maybe post the best draft sometime in January and then try to solicit some public opinion based on that draft. See you later. Based on that draft. So I'm hoping that that is a plan that we can execute. On the right-hand side,
Jerry, can I interrupt you for 1 second, please?
Yeah, sure.
And this is for Cliff, who's moderating the meeting. Cliff, in the attendees is First Baptist Church. I believe that's Reverend Taylor. If you could promote Reverend Taylor to panelists, please. He was in the wrong room.
Okay, good.
So we'll get to Reverend Taylor. Jerry, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
That's okay. So I had another sentence before we get to Reverend Taylor's introduction. That at some point, hopefully, we can have the public provide some input on the draft that this committee creates, which I understand is not going to be very easy, but so far that's the basic skeletal plan right now. Reverend Taylor.
You're muted, sir. You're on mute, Reverend Taylor.
Unmute yourself.
You got it.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening. If you could just provide a few points, maybe introduce yourself and a few points as to what you maybe would like to see this committee do as a mandate from the state of New York.
Yes, my name is the Reverend Dr. James E. Taylor, Senior Pastor of the First Baptist Church at 817 Howard Avenue in Mamaroneck. I've been the senior pastor there for 33 years. And the reason that I'm on the committee and what I want to see is the best for everyone come out of this meeting, that everyone will feel a part, that everyone will feel like they belong wherever they care to be. So I want this committee to be the best it can be. So that's what I intend to do, be the best that I can be, that I might help others be the best that they can be.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. We have this platform until about 7:15. I'd like to shut up now and have the open discussion and just take notes if the committee feels that that is productive.
Okay, I think, I don't want to limit anybody or hinder anybody, but, let's just take a couple of minutes each. If there are particular issues that you think that aren't in the outline that the governor gave us, but that you would like to see addressed during this process, this might be a good time to point that out. Does anybody want to start? I mean, I can talk all night. You shouldn't agree, Jerry.
I shouldn't. It's just a natural reaction. I will refrain myself.
I'll start.
Okay, Jared.
Just transparency. Again, like I said, you guys gave us a lot to look over, and I think it's important. I think it's important that we look over it. I recently served on a grand jury in the Westchester, and that opened my eyes. I mean, that was just the experience was overwhelming. You get to see both sides of this process and how it works, and I think that you lose nothing by transparency. And like one of the things that I've always approached the village on was body cameras. I'm looking at.
Jared, you muted yourself.
It muted. Hit and hold the space bar. That might work. Okay, he's out.
Hello?
Yep.
Yeah, I'm sorry. So I just think that a more transparent we can be, the better we can be. And there has to be good communications between the village and all its residents. I think Chief Leahy, I've said it to him plenty of times. I think he's doing a good job. I don't have any reason to believe that Lieutenant DeRusa won't do a good job. I just think that there has to be more transparency. And that's some of the things that even in the Bratton report, he put transparency. And I think you can't go wrong, because when the public thinks that there's something going on or don't think they have the full picture is when we'll have problems.
Jared, what was the point about body cameras? Because it cut out when you were talking about that.
I'm sorry. The point is that I don't see why, when you can drive down from Larchmont to to Rhinebeck, we have, something like 20 something banks. So I don't know when this cost issue versus lack of a credibility. Okay. Because if we have 52 cops, I think, in the village of Mamaroneck, you break up the shifts. I'm thinking you may be talking 8 to 10 cameras at any given time, maybe 15 cameras. But the transparency you get from having a body camera, like in New Rochelle, when they recently had a shooting, a police officer involved shooting, the camera from the beginning showed you heard and you saw that there was the police officer yelled gun. And that went so far to, I think, to calm down the neighborhood that there was in fact a fear of threat that officer had. And when you have that type of clarity, versus you take my word for it, it goes a long way. Wherever you are, wherever we've seen a video where the video was released, it told a story. Sometimes we used to hear that it only tells partial story because you have a civilian that takes this video. But if you have something that's on every interaction with the public, then I think it's clear. And that's all I'm saying is I think body cameras are something that the village of Mamaroneck, it's way past the time that we have this now. We are one of the best equipment wise, we have a lot of equipment here. And it's just, I don't understand why that hasn't been incorporated.
Okay, that's definitely a topic we can explore and something that the Board of Trustees will then have to decide whether to fund or not. But it's definitely a valid topic. Anybody else have any topics? Janet, anything with the CRC? I just want to point out before Janet starts, this is a big night for the CRC. They're having their gala tonight. So Janet, congratulations to you and to the CRC.
Thank you very much for that, Tom. Yes, and it starts at 6:30, so I'm a little, I want to stay here until that time. So my apologies in advance for leaving the meeting early today.
Sure.
But I think there is, I agree with Mr. Winchester and Mrs. Saul about transparency. It's important to have a sense of what it's, currently working on right now. And I can speak for myself, I'm not a police officer. I never, I haven't done any work with a police department. The only thing I've done with the police department is being an advocate and trying to build a bridge with law enforcement and the immigrant community, because I think it's important that the immigrant community feels protected. How we accomplish that, that's why I'm here for. I like to know, in what insight I could bring to the police department, and also what I can learn here to bring back to the immigrant community. So then, we have a police department to protect the entire, Mamaroneck community. So I like to, I think transparency is very important. So then we know that, what we are addressing here, there's nothing else that, it's missing our, our side, etc. So I echo those, topics.
Anybody else? Williams?
Yeah, so kind of what I'm looking to do, throughout my entire time here in the village, I came here while I was still serving on active duty, and I was with Mamaroneck EMS while I was still in the military. So I've basically been interacting with the men and women of this police department since I first moved to Mamaroneck. And basically what I want to make sure is that, we, throughout the hard work we do here, we continue to recognize the hard work and the bravery that these men and women show every single day on behalf of all of us. I've done CPR alongside these men and women. I've fought fires alongside these men and women. And I just want to make sure that that we don't forget that. It can be easy to get caught up in the negative and lose sight of the positive. So I think we have a fantastic police department here, and I don't want us to lose sight of that.
I agree. But if I could add a little bit of color to the idea about transparency, one of the things that we pride ourselves on within the JAG Corps and in the military, and I'm not saying that we're perfect because we definitely have our own sets of issues that are always on the table. You cannot be in a military courtroom without somebody going and talking about the higher standard and the fact that we all have to look out for each other and make sure that the public views us as trustworthy and views those in the military, and I liken that to the police, as trustworthy citizens. You are trusted to hold a weapon. You are trusted to make arrests. Just like in the military, we are trusted to hold a weapon. We're trusted, to deploy and represent the U.S. in other areas. And, there's always issues. There's always problems. No place is perfect. But we take it very seriously that we are transparent and that we hold ourselves to that higher standard. So I think it's important to point out that it's also to the benefit of the police officers and to your own safety that the public views you as trustworthy. And I'm not saying that they don't view you as trustworthy, but I think the whole idea behind transparency is that, right? You want to be as transparent as possible because you can build on that trust. And the more transparent you are with us, the more we can help you build that trust and the more the community trusts you and the better it all works. So I don't think it's necessarily a transparency because we think you have something hiding in the corner, to the point that I made earlier, or that we don't trust you. I think it's, lay it all out on the table. Let's all talk about this so that that trust is there and that it stays there. And I think that's kind of an important point to make because it's for your safety as well. It's, if the public loses trust, then the police officers are endangered just as much as the community is endangered. And that's not a place that anybody wants to be in. So, to kind of put some color on the whole transparency thing, I think it's important to view it that way as well.
Yeah, and I agree with you, Ms. Braun. I think that when people see a police department or police officers act in brutal ways, like we saw with George Floyd, even though it didn't happen in Mamaroneck, it's hard to disassociate that with all police officers, and that's not fair. But that's the way the mind works, right? When there's a public corruption and an elected official goes to jail for taking a bribe or some other thing, people say, well, you can't trust anybody in office. And I've had that conversation with a lot of people over the years. And I think that because public officials, elected officials, and police officers are so public and so out there and so representative of the community and the government, that what happens in Milwaukee affects what happens in Mamaroneck, or how people view things in Mamaroneck. We're not an island unto ourselves, and although our police department didn't do that, and I wouldn't think that they would, but that perception is not carried by the whole community, and people don't differentiate a lot of times. They don't differentiate between the governor of Illinois who goes to jail for selling a Senate seat and the mayor of Mamaroneck or the mayor of Larchmont. You're all crooked. I hear that all the time. But that's a very good point, and thank you very much for bringing that up. Anybody else?
Mayor, can I ask? Okay, go ahead.
Who else?
Go ahead,
Somebody
Theodore.
else, please.
No, go ahead. Go ahead, Theodore. I was just going to ask a question, but go ahead.
Look, I really would like this to be incredibly productive and go very well. I think if we are a little productive and it goes fairly well, that would be great. But as you can all see from this meeting already, the lines are being drawn. So let me say this. The governor has been incredibly crystal clear. And if you haven't read the introduction to his order that these committees are going to happen, the police departments are going to change. And everybody knows nobody likes change. But we have a deeply eroded trust between police departments and civilians. Not in all of Mamaroneck, but in a big chunk of Mamaroneck, just like a big chunk of everywhere else. And it may be that the Black Lives Matter movement is what brought this to starkly to the fore, and lots of people are hostile to the Black Lives Matter movement. They are irrelevant in this. They are perhaps a tool by which, I won't say they're irrelevant. I will say that for those people who are inherently hostile to the Black Lives Matter movement, for our purposes, they serve as a vehicle to have brought these underlying divisions to light. There are a lot of Black people who have been shot and murdered at the hands of police officers in some situations where, if you've seen the video, as an officer, you should be the first person to say, oh my God, I can't believe he did that when the person's back was to him, or any such thing, because any upstanding officer would not behave that way. There are other situations where the tensions were so high that one's behavior maybe could not have been predicted or even scripted. in advance because the situation was not predictable and not manageable. And what comes to mind are situations where there's somebody suffering from the throes of mental illness and perhaps doesn't have the traditional criminal intent, but rather is in fact very ill and behaving as a person who's sick and who needs help. I think that we should really try not to be retrograde and realize that these are problems that we are forced to accept and go forward, regardless of how deep or not deep the problems exist in the village of Mamaroneck. We are told by the governor we are going to change. So rather than be obstructionist, if anybody was intending to be, I think the idea is let's compromise, let's discuss, let's try to be honest about where the problems are, not whether there are problems, and go forward with a plan that results in a written plan that helps the village to be a more positive place. Because not everyone feels like they're an included member or that they'll be treated fairly by the police. And that's not meant to insult the entire force, and particularly not the chief and the chief to be, but we have to accept not what one's self-perception is or what one's friend's perception is, but that we are told people perceive the police to be not their friend, to be their enemy, especially people of color view the police to view them differently from people who have white skin. And we have to wrestle with these issues and not fight the issues. And I can tell you that there are officers in the village of Mamaroneck whose behavior off duty is offensive and race-based. And if you find that surprising, you don't really know the police department, because most police officers would agree that some of their colleagues behave poorly. So rather than come up as an apologist, let's figure out where we can root out the problems and find policies that can really go forward in a positive way. That's my intent.
Thank you. Jerry, you was trying to say something?
Sharon, I believe Sharon spoke about some changes in New York City. I might have gotten it wrong. Did you, Sharon, did you?
Yes, I'm not participating in the police department there. I have friends who are in other committees in Connecticut and in Westchester who have already started this work. And so I'm going to lean on them a little bit. But since you already said my name, I'm going to ask a question. I'm a little concerned that this started, the governor brought this up in, I think, June or July. By August, it was sort of finalized. I know people on committees who have already started the work. And when I look at the timeline, Thanksgiving is next week. December, we have Christmas. We're going to be swishing in these meetings. I don't understand, based on the way we've done today, certainly, how we're going to get to our end goal by February, March.
Right. So that's valid. And maybe I can ask the school district superintendents to provide a little bit of information regarding the extension of time that school districts, I guess, were asked, not our school districts, but other school districts, for an extension of time. I believe that we're not going to be the only one in that boat, because I know that the town is actually looking forward to our meeting, because this is actually the meeting that they want to try to see how the information is provided and how the committee interacts. I'm not sure if Larchmont has put their meeting together. I don't think they.
No, Larchmont hasn't yet.
Right. So I understand that some of you may feel like we're behind, and I get that. But it may not be out of the realm of possibility to ask for an extension to the April 1st deadline, similar to the school districts when they had to provide the governor a plan where some extension, and they were granted that extension.
Okay.
And so I don't know
Yeah. Cool.
if it's something similar to that. Dr. Ferraro, if you recall.
I'm not sure I can give you an exact answer. Reinec did not ask for an extension. School districts that did ask for extension had other conditions around it. It was our decision when we did our reopening plan to try to meet the deadline.
Okay.
Like many things that come down from the state, we're not given a long window to accomplish it.
Right.
We were given our directive in, in June to have it completed by the end of July.
Right.
And there was the opportunity. We didn't know. I think the other thing, when you ask for extensions, though, you don't know whether or not they're going to be granted or even out there or available to you. So it's been my experience to try to work in a timeline and not ask about an extension, to do the good work that we need to do and do it within the time frame. April's a long time away. It really is. If we have 6 months. If I'm listening to this committee, I'm just coming into it. You have 6 months to April or 5 months to April. It's a long time to do the work.
I absolutely don't think we should be relying on an extension of any kind. I mean, I think I agree. I do wish we had more time, but I think, it is what it is. We are where we are, and we need to try to persevere and get done what we can get done. If we get to April and we feel like this is productive and it'd be useful to have more time, yes, I'm sure we could talk to the state, but just because the state needs information by April doesn't mean that we can't continue to do our work too, right? We could still do things within the village and still get our report to the state in time, but we could still make progress. We don't need to, we can still proceed forward.
It just doesn't stop, you're saying, on April 1st.
I don't think we have to. I mean, it depends on obviously the committee and what everybody wants to do. Obviously, if we have to get a report in by April 1st, we have to get a report in by April 1st, but that doesn't mean that our work has to stop, right?
No, it doesn't, but a policy has to be adopted by the board by April 1st.
No, agree. I'm saying like any deliverables need to be delivered, but
Right,
if we feel
right.
like this is productive and maybe
Right, I
there's
mean-
more that can come out of it.
And listen, you seem like an ambitious group. We could add more meetings. But just in way of explanation, the village has kind of been operating with one hand because of COVID. We've had a lot of people out. Where right now we've split the workforce into A group and B group to avoid more infections. It has been a difficult time. And I had hoped, honestly, when this all started, that we'd be at a point today where we'd be meeting, in the village courtroom. But now I don't know when we're ever going to go back to the village courtroom. You can't make that prediction anymore. We were talking about doing this, things were looking up, right? We were going from 200 cases a month to a handful, and now we're back up to this month. We're easily going to be over 150 by the time this month is over. So, things, what I've found in my public service is Albany, likes to, put requirements on local government without giving them any resources to meet those requirements.
Mm-hmm.
And then they tell the local government, oh, by the way, you can't raise taxes either. But still do all this, which I don't mind doing this. I think this is a good exercise, but it's a timetable that didn't take into account the circumstances that we are now all living under. But I'm willing to meet that timetable, and I'm willing to do extra meetings to do it. And maybe we can schedule some in, as we see as needed.
Yeah. I've got to leave in 3 minutes to go to the CRC event tonight. We've talked a lot about transparency. One of the things that's obvious here is that it's already present in our conversations that there's a certain amount of distrust. We all want to get over it. We all got to figure out how to get over it. But it's clear just in hearing the comments that it's there. You can't really discuss how you're changing things until you can sit down and really reach agreement about what the current situation is. The documents that we've been reading all identify a series of problems and a series of steps that different places have gone over them. I'd like to have more of a sense of what the problems and what the good things are that the police have been doing, and let them go through kind of an inward looking inspection and bring it out. And then somebody who sits on the other side could do the same thing and say what we think they're doing well and what we're not sure of. And that might give us a baseline upon which to work. We haven't got that yet.
John, we're going to work that out. I told you that.
I know you said you're going to work on, but you said specifically in terms of the handbook is. I'm posing it as a larger issue than just the handbook.
Okay.
Can I ask a very pointed question that's not logistical, as far as focusing maybe a place to start when we're talking about trust and building trust and whatnot? And when you're looking at the policies and trying to release some information to us, my question would be, is there any kind of internal policies or procedures with regard to bystander obligations, bystander training, any kind of ability to, I don't want to say report, because report makes it sound like you're going to get fellow officers in trouble of some kind, but I know that Ms. Saul spoke about there being personal level racism within the police department that has been seen. I personally have seen some Facebook comments, I don't know, but is there any enablement for fellow police officers to speak up if they see something, not necessarily to necessarily prosecute or get anybody in trouble, so to speak, but within the confines of some kind of policy, some kind of bystander or enablement of speaking up?
If someone was to break the policies and procedures, is another officer obligated to report that? Is that in some substance?
Yeah, I mean, some of it. I don't even necessarily know an obligation to report, because that's an affirmative duty, right? And that would be a little bit more complicated. But yes, is there an affirmative duty? If there's not an affirmative duty, are there policies and procedures to protect people who do speak up? Are there ways to enable them? Is there been any kind of training to enable people on how to speak up and how to do it in a way that helps out the police department internally? Because I know, for example, in the military, right, if I witness something, I have an affirmative duty as an officer, but somebody else may not have an affirmative duty, but if they do speak up, they are protected. So, I mean, not necessarily, it's not the same as whistleblower, and it's not necessarily affirmative duty, but I don't know what there is and what those policies and procedures are, or if they even exist.
Chiefs, can you speak to that?
So when you say bystander, are you referring to another officer?
Yeah, in this context, yes, another officer. So for example, right, let me just throw a not crazy, but like a bigger example out there. In the George Floyd case, right, you had a bunch of officers there. One officer has his knee on George Floyd's neck. Another officer may or may not have seen that and may have thought to himself, that's maybe not the best position for him to be in. I'd like to be able to speak up and do something, but because of maybe the influence, or because of the rank or rank and file or whatever, or the procedures or the way it would be viewed within the department, if he said something, maybe he chooses not to say something. Just to give, an example.
So that's a perfect example. And yes, a Village of Mamaroneck police officer does have the duty to intervene. He or she is obligated to intervene.
And is that just on duty? I mean, I know when someone's off duty, they're a private citizen. I understand that, but are there also policies and procedures? Because I know that Ms. Saul had referred to witnessing some outside of uniform situations.
So our policies are written in that aspect to an on-duty police officer. We wouldn't expect an off-duty police officer to be
right
in that situation.
Understood. Okay. No, and that just may be a good place to start as far as taking a look at what these policies and procedures are. Just to give some guidance to start out with, right? I know it's overwhelming. There's a lot to look at. So I'm just trying to figure out a place to start is all.
So that's one of the several policies that we plan on giving to the committee tomorrow.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
I'm going to be rude and apologize for leaving you, but I'm going to move over to the.
No, we understand.
John, tell them I'm on my way. I'm on my way.
Thank you so much. I also have to jump off, but it was already, good to be here with all of you, and I look forward to our next meeting. Thank you so
Janet.
much.
Thanks, Janet.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye.
Have fun tonight.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Elsa.
One of the items in the agenda was the website information. Are we going to have a designated website just for this committee? Or is
Yeah, I'll
it
bring it
going to
up.
be part of the Village of Mamaroneck?
Yeah, I'll show it to you. I have it. I can get it.
Okay.
Let me just get to that screen and provide it. Oops. This is it, Elsa. So we have a section, we have boards right here. And so a resident or someone interested would go to the boards, and then there would be a drop-down menu, and then the Police Reform and Reinvention Committee. I hit that link, and this comes up. It's basically a little introduction. It's the members of the committee. It is the New York State accreditation standards, crime reports from several years, and then a couple of other reports, as well as information regarding some police personnel information. So, and this could be expanded, obviously, and we expect it to be expanded with more items. This is where we would probably put the draft versions of the Police Reform and Reinvention Plan, right on this page.
Thank you. Is there going to be a link where the public can submit suggestions or testimonials?
Right, so I don't have that link set up, but what I did talk to our public information officer today about was the availability of providing a survey. I think we're going to create a survey and push it out. It should be a quick survey, not a quick survey, but not many questions, just something where people can share their experience. And then we would collect that information. So as of today, we started working on something like that, and we'll get that out as soon as possible. But I can put on a link here where people can provide an email. We can just provide it. We can just create an email address where we would collect firsthand accounts from people, by email, if that's something that you're thinking of.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let me go back to the page. Okay. And so, Mayor, I could put that email back up pretty quickly. It would be prrc@vomni or at vomni.org. You muted out. You muted. You got to unmute.
Okay, we get it on the website.
Yep.
So that people have an opportunity.
Yep. That was a great idea, Elsa.
You'll find Elsa will have a lot of great ideas.
Good.
Anyone else?
Experience of Elsa as well. Everyone loves this word, defund the police. Everyone's favorite word. It was a terrible word. It was a terrible choice of a word. It made everybody freak out. One portion, conceptual portion, has to do with decentralizing certain powers away from the police to non-police areas, non-police professionals. And that should in no way take away the authority of the police. And in fact, it's probably the police who should be determining whether they can delegate certain situations, and they'd have to maybe have a little more increased training for this, to other professionals. So I raised the issue of mental health professionals, and I wanted to kind of put out and ask people whether they have experience with it, whether they have thoughts of this. I know that a lot of departments now have either adjunct personnel who are trained psychotherapists and, violence reduction professionals who either would go with or instead of police to certain situations. And I wonder whether that's something that we could think about creating for the village. Does anyone have thoughts?
I agree with you that the defund the police was perhaps the worst political slogan in the history of politics, and probably cost the Democrats a majority. But I think that you make a good point, that the police are asked to do many, many tasks that other professionals get PhDs in. You know, Jerry and I did discuss that there are, and I've not had a chance to discuss this with, there are people that can consult for police. You know, we're a 51-member police department.
Yeah.
You know, this isn't New York or San Francisco where, you know, you can hire civilian employees, you know, and just cover it in the budget, right? Because, you know, the second I start doing that, all you're going to say, I can't afford to live here anymore. What are you doing? But Jerry, could you talk about some of the consultancies that you looked at?
So I learned last week, I think on a, I'm not sure if it was a webinar or some other platform, but the city of Poughkeepsie, which is of course a much larger city than the village of Mamaroneck, uses a company called Mental Health America. And what they do is they provide some assistance to the Poughkeepsie Police Department after the individual has been detained, or where the police department, it was better explained, where the police department needs assistance on the fly or in real time. And I did a little research, but not much. I didn't spend too much time on it. But there is a company called Mental Health America that consults with large cities and businesses to provide mental health professionals, similar to, I guess, in basic, maybe this is too simplistic, but it seems to me it's something like maybe a translator service, where if we have a language that we're involved with an individual that that speaks a language that we just don't know other than Spanish, which is very common, or something like that, we would have to have the help of a translator service. I think the Mental Health America type company, I believe, does that for some police departments. And so, quite honestly, it's something that I mentioned to the mayor during one of our phone calls, but I haven't had time to do any research on it or even speak to our chiefs about since it must have been over the weekend. So it must have been that recent.
But just let me ask the chiefs, do you have any input on this?
So we do work with a crisis stabilization team through Westchester County. And that is generally as a follow-up. So they help us with a lot of our repeat clients. But to staff somebody 24/7, we don't close. That would definitely be a budgetary issue.
I think I could add something here. I learned on one of my other committees that many years ago, there used to be a crisis stabilization intervention group that would be deployed out of Westchester County Airport for various jurisdictions if the police needed help on the spot. From what I understand, it didn't work out very well because they had, let's say, one unit at the county airport. And by the time they got to, the call that was needed, the time had passed and, they were covering the entire county. The Westchester County Police Reform Committee is pretty close, I think, to completion. And from what I understand, one of the recommendations that committee has made to the county is to bring that back and to add money to the budget, which I heard that they are adding money to the budget for that, to make it bigger, more expansive, to hopefully help out the communities if they need to call on that. So that's an option that won't cost the village any money, that may be being built in by Westchester County right now.
if I could just say something too, I just sent Jerry an email. I work for a company called Silver Seal. We're a private security and consulting company based in New York City. One of the things we've started doing since this whole turn in law enforcement began was reaching out to or helping communities build that bridge between the police department and the community. And when I announced that I was on this committee, the leadership of my company told me that they would be willing to make some of the services that we provide at free or of no cost, of little or no cost. So that's something we do have available to us. I sent Jerry the information on that. It's called Silver Seal. The program we were pushing out there is called the New Blue, and it's headed by some people who are prominent community activists as well as prominent retired NYPD officials, including a retired deputy commissioner. But also, while we're on this specific topic, as an EMT who's been assaulted in the back of an ambulance on mental health calls, this conversation makes me very nervous because we have a volunteer EMS agency in this community. And when I was on my way to White Plains Hospital with a intoxicated person in the back of the ambulance, and that person started assaulting me, it was just me and nobody else. It was like 5 minutes of me on my own. And, I think when we start having these conversations, you have to remember, those police officers are the lifeline that I had when I needed it. So, you just have to keep that in mind. Just saying we don't want police rolling on mental health calls or psychiatric calls or emotionally disturbed person calls doesn't work for me.
I don't think that's what we were saying. I think what we were saying is that.
I just want to make sure that experience is in the room.
Thank you. I think what we were saying that the police should have access to support for mental health services.
I think it would also protect the police as well, just because they don't necessarily have the training that someone with a PhD that's used to dealing with this can handle. So I think it benefits everybody, right?
Yeah, but is that person with a PhD going to be coming out at 3:30 a.m.?
Well, that's what we're trying to solve for, right? I don't think it's necessarily mutually exclusive either, right? Like maybe that person with the PhD also needs police backup, and vice versa. So I don't think it's necessarily mutually exclusive.
I also was involved with the EMS in the village of Mamaroneck and also ex-captain of the fire department. In the 1990s, when we used to go on calls that we used to call EDP, which he's explaining, Mr. Williams is telling you, is an emotionally disturbed person. At that time, our training was, especially because the ambulance runs usually with a driver and one other person, maybe an EMT or a medic, depending on the time of day. The person would a lot of times be strapped into the bed, the gurney, and if by chance they would get out, we were told at that time just to punch him. So, I mean, it's unfortunate that, things will happen, but at that same time, I don't know where to go, but just to punch a guy at that point was not the proper training. So I haven't been involved in over 10 years with the EMS. And so I would assume that they've improved on those methods. But yeah, it is nerve-wracking and nervous to be in the back with somebody who's emotionally disturbed and who can get out. And it's just you and that person. And that time we had a female driver. So I'm as expected as a 25-year-old guy or 27-year-old guy to be the line of defense in there. Mm-hmm. But I wasn't trained. I mean, I don't have Mr. Williams' experience, as far as your, military background. I was just a civilian doing training at that time, helping out the village and being active. So, I mean, I agree. The police are needed to go on these calls because a person can't be left alone. But at the same time, I mean, I think if you can ask the chief or the lieutenant, acting chief, interim chief, many people in the department aren't qualified to handle someone who's emotionally disturbed. They'll do their best. But I mean, what one guy looks at one day, he could be looking at you and the next minute he's ready to hurt you. And to attest, the Village of Mamaroneck's, at least the police department, I've had a situation with the chief where he was looking for somebody, and he had a crisis guy with him and asked me if I seen the person. So I know that's a real thing that happens here. The follow-up is a real thing. And that part of it, I got to say, they did a good job, because that guy was a little bit off that day. But there has to be an understanding is that just because you have a hammer, everything can't be a nail. So we have to think outside the box here. Inside the report that the governor is issuing, he lists several different departments who have on-call nurses, who have people in the community. You know, I mean, we don't know where we're going to go with this, but I mean, at some point, there's people in this community, I'm sure, that could, if not be the person that would go on the call, that could better advise police on how to deal with people like that. That's all I'm trying to say. I just don't think that, you know, we have to think it's all one side or another. It can be a marriage of
Absolutely, they're not.
Chief.
Absolutely, they're not mutually exclusive, and I think the de-escalation aspect is really, really important. So
Absolutely, I completely agree that every problem is a nail, but I definitely don't want that hammer taken my tool bag.
I don't think anyone's saying that the hammer would get
yeah.
taken if it absolutely became necessary to be used, right? But how quickly you jump from A to B could be mitigated by what happens in between.
Well, absolutely, and in my experience, you know, we're going on thousands of emergency calls in this village. I've seen excellent displays of de-escalation on the part of our men and women in this law enforcement agency, and it just happened to be the one person we thought was stable, like the one person we thought was not going to be a problem. I said, "Yeah, I'm good. I got this. I'll take it in on my own." And that was the person that snapped on Atlantic Avenue, halfway to White Plains Hospital.
Yeah.
Yep.
For sure. But I do think that by looking at it that way, I mean, the police officers are in danger themselves, obviously, right? And we don't want them to be in any more danger than they have to be. So I don't think that it is mutually exclusive at all. I don't think anyone's saying that you take away worst case scenario out of anybody's hands, but I think by building to the toolbox, by adding tools to the toolbox, you definitely give more opportunities for there to be de-escalation. The police definitely work very hard at de-escalation. I know that they don't want there to be violence. They don't want anybody to get hurt. And that's why they're there. But the more tools you have to prevent that, the less you need the hammer in the end, or the less hammers you need, right? So
absolutely. We call it verbal jujitsu. You know, how do you de-escalate that situation? How do you find avenues to effectively communicate with that individual? There are techniques that are very effective techniques, but should the conversation turn towards, we'll send an EMT on their own to an emotionally disturbed person call, I think that's a terrible idea.
Right, and I don't think anybody's advocating that, but I understand your position, and I thank you for the volunteer and the work that you've done in the community. Gary, where are we?
So Mayor, it's pretty clear that many of the board members have already looked through the material that we've provided. What I'm asking some board members, if they have the ability with their connections outside of the Village of Mamaroneck, if there are other committees that you're aware of, or maybe friendly with other people on other committees, if you wanted to send me some draft plans, I'm not too clear on exactly how our plan is going to look at the very moment right now, but it would be good to maybe have a couple of examples from other communities. We've already, at our managers, the village and town administrator and manager association, we've already started and promised each other that we would share our drafts with each other to try to see, and pick up ideas in areas where we may have missed. But if some of the committee members can provide that to me, if they have if they have that connection with other people, then that would be very helpful for us, because it'll, I believe, speed up the process and get us to where we need to be as far as our draft and our commitment to the draft to the Board of Trustees.
And we could also, if somebody else had a good idea, we're not adverse to borrowing it.
No, we'll borrow it for free. That was the one.
What's next on the agenda, Jerry?
That's it. We've gone through everything that we needed to go through. It's 10 to 7. Our next meeting is next Tuesday at 5:15. By that time, we will have some of the items, some of the deliverables from our side that we could provide the board members. And maybe at that point, I could even maybe cobble together a quick draft, either for that meeting or our first meeting in December. But I'll try for next Tuesday to be able to provide a quick outline and draft of what our plan may look like if I can get to that over the weekend.
Can we also be sure to get some kind of list of the trainings that everyone in the police department receives as well? I don't know if it's in the policies and procedures, but I just want to know where we're starting from with trainings.
I'm sorry, say that again, Ms. Pearl?
Could we get a list of the trainings that the police department currently takes part in? It may be part of the policies and procedures, I don't know, but I just want to make sure that that's included in what we get at the front end.
Gotcha. Thank you.
We can do that.
Okay. Well, you asking for like the what training they receive at the academy or subsequent to the academy?
Well, I mean, subsequent to the academy, whatever this department requires, and then, I mean, if the more information you can give, the better, right? If you can also provide what they get at the academy, that's great. We don't need like, like full documents, but even if it's just a list of the courses or the types of training, we can certainly then dig deeper.
Okay, no, I understand what you need.
And I had a question about statistics. I'm sure that the department keeps statistics on, I assume, arrests. I don't know if there are statistics reports kept on stops, like the stop and frisk reports we see in the city, or the equivalent, how much of that is incumbent upon the police department to record and retain, what form, if so, whatever statistics that the department maintains regarding interface with the public. I would be very curious to know what is recorded, what is required to be reported, and whether that information is collated in any accessible form. I guess I would ask that. And I think it does exist because I've seen a broader area breakdown, but in terms of arrests of people who are Black, people who are Hispanic, people who are white, there is usually a racial breakdown, and I just don't know whether this department maintains it themselves or whether what I've seen is from an outside agency. But I would like to know about those statistics, where they're kept, and whether they can be voluntarily accessed by the public. And the next area of transparency is, this is coming, civilian complaints or complaints against police officers, use of force complaints, excessive force complaints, bias complaints and such. I'm told that they're actually filed with the village. So with the chiefs, unless they're about the chiefs. And if that's correct, where are those complaints kept? How can one access them? And what about the ultimate findings based on those complaints? Which is that we don't have a CCRB here, but as I understand it, we're supposed to have a hearing officer, not one of the trustees or the trustees, but an independent and separate hearing officer to adjudicate complaints against the police department, civilian complaints. So I just want
just let me point out, the only time that there's an independent hearing officer is when there are charges brought against a police officer, and those charges have to be heard.
By the DA, you mean?
No, if there are departmental charges brought against the police department, the Board of Trustees used to be the hearing officer. We changed that to allow under a mandatory referendum back in 2009 to allow a hearing officer to be appointed. but that's only if formal charges are brought against an officer. And
And did we
Chief,
have
correct? There hasn't been one
Formal charges against the officer filed by the village,
filed by the village, yes.
not criminal charges.
Yes. It's not based upon a civilian complaint.
So then how are civilian complaints handled?
They're handled by the leadership of the police department.
Okay.
So they're purely internal.
They're handled by the leadership of the police department.
And is there ever any external scrutiny of that? And if so, or if not, can we get that?
They're handled by the leadership of the police department.
Right,
That's
so
all
I would like that,
So
how, that they exist and how they are handled to be made public. That's
Thank you.
part of the accountability that I interpret these requirements to include.
When you say police department, you mean within the village police department, correct? There's no higher, like the county police or anything like that doesn't get involved. Okay.
That's correct, Ms. Pearl.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
My question still stands.
Okay, I don't have an answer for your question right now.
I have an answer. I have an answer. Well, in the past, it would go to Lieutenant Falcone, and then he would do his report, and then you would get a letter from the chief. That's simple.
Who's you?
Says me?
No, who's you?
Oh, Jared, I'm sorry. I'm sorry,
No,
Jared.
in that scenario, are you saying the civilian would bring a complaint against an officer and then the lieutenant would write a report and you would get a letter from the civilian would get a letter from the chief as to how that was resolved?
Yes.
Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
I'm
So the
assuming unless it ultimately ended up in some kind of charges, which Mayor Murphy said has not happened recently, but that's one of the possibilities of the resolution, I guess.
Yes, yes, correct.
So those findings are generally public information.
Since they changed the law, they are. They weren't public information a year
Since
ago.
50A was repealed? So I assume we would have to foil it, even though it should be just given to us under the repeal of 50A, right? I mean, when I get a packet of discovery from an ADA now, whether I ask for it or not, I get a full personnel report from each police officer, even if they're pending, rather than sealed charges. It used to be only final determinations, but I get pending DWI, this and that all the time without having to ask for it in a very quick turnaround in the city. That should be available to us now that 50A is repealed. I do like a conversation stopper. Okay.
Well,
I don't know that they're saying it's not available, but I don't know that they necessarily have the answers right
I
now.
don't have the
so-
answer. You're asking a very complicated legal question that obviously you have a history with. And, this is something that we'll discuss with our village attorney.
I would also think
You're
that
speaking in definitives that, and you might very well be right. But at this point, I just can't, go by what you're telling me.
Yeah, and
for the size of the,
I understand.
sorry, I'm just saying for the size of the village since 50A was repealed and given all that's going on with COVID and stuff, I would guess that there have not been as many or that many complaints that have been handled thus far in this time period. So I'm not saying that they're not doing their job, but I think the familiarity isn't there yet as to the volume that the city would receive.
I just think nobody seems to have thought about whether it in fact should be accessible or not. So guys, talk amongst yourselves, figure out whether it's in fact something that you will be required to disclose ultimately, and how that, can be transmitted if that's what you determine. I mean, if there's one cop who keeps throwing black kids up against a wall, obviously we have to know that there are multiple complaints about that. That's part of what transparency is. And you shouldn't be afraid of it. But if you discuss amongst yourselves, do you have to? Is it legal? Is it not legal? Whatever. And we'll come back at another meeting.
I take umbrage to the characterization that people would be afraid of it. And that, people are being less than open. This is the beginning of a process. And, I think we should assume that we're all of goodwill until someone has been proven to be of ill will.
I've never
So-
met an organization that wanted to disclose its disciplinary.
You
record.
know what? It's a new day, Theo.
Amazing.
Yeah. This is called a collaborative. Let's try and collaborate. It's not called the adversary committee. It's called the collaborative committee.
I take umbrage to that.
You should.
So I
Well,
will,
make it that way. That's fine. You want to fight about every little thing?
I don't.
Get what
I
we're
don't.
entitled to, that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, well, that's what's happening anyway.
This is not about shielding. This is about opening.
No one's trying to shield anything. We're having a discussion. As you're discussing it, Mr. Saul, you're ascribing motives to people, and you're ascribing ill intent to people, and that's not the case. And let's just have discussions. And when we tell you what, we'll get you an answer. We'll get you an answer.
yeah.
The idea of not having an answer now doesn't mean that we're hiding something.
I'm not saying that
That's exactly what he said.
right now. I was just asking and you guys froze like deer in the headlights.
You came on and said the battle lines have already been drawn. No one's drawn a battle line here except you. Everyone else is here to help, to figure things out, and you keep attacking them.
And not only that, but I'm pretty sure you're wrong about the 58 stuff, but I will get back to you about that, considering I represent several PBAs and they don't just randomly hand out disciplinary records to people.
We're going to get this answer from the.
And this is also a legal question that the village can handle, the village attorney can handle. It's not here. This isn't adversarial in nature. This is collaborative in nature, like Mr. Murphy said.
I think we just need to figure out what the policies and procedures are going to be around it, and then I'm sure we can have an open and honest discussion about it. But
I couldn't even get an answer about what the process was until Jared chimed in. That's what that was my question. But when I got no answer about what the process was, then I realized, well, there's rules for this now. We get to know what the process is. It shouldn't be a big deal or a secret. Whatever, go find out what you need to release. Don't release what you don't want to, whatever.
I'll write up, before the next meeting, I'll write up minutes. Basically, I'll just try to summarize everyone's comments were. I'll provide them to the committee members individually. And then in the area where I wrote your name down and tried to jot down very quickly what you may have said and what points you were trying to make, please don't be afraid to correct me or to add anything that I may have missed that you can recall. This way, before the next meeting, which will probably be the morning of the next meeting, I'll provide this committee a quick draft, or I will provide them a draft of these minutes, and we can talk about them and discuss them at the next meeting, at the very beginning of the meeting, so that I have some record of some minutes. When I take down minutes, I take them, they're very basic. They're basically just bullet points and nothing else. I don't go into paragraphs of what happened, because everything is recorded and it's on tape, so we can see exactly what each and every one of us said. I just have to have a draft copy, which is a requirement that I have to provide our village. Thank you for that. Go
I have
ahead.
a question about documents.
Yeah.
So I know we have documents in multiple emails so far, and there are also documents on the website.
Yeah.
Are they the same? Is that going to be a central source for finding the documents, or do we have different documents than are being shared with the general public?
Right, no, so I'm not sharing anything with the general public. What I will do is anything that I provide the committee, like Sharon, like this, the agenda with and other things, I will make sure that that's on the website. I'll make sure everything is on the website.
Which is available to the general public.
Yeah, available to the general public.
Oh, one other question. I downloaded that app. Will we be using that at all, or is that just not something we're going to use? I didn't see any updates or anything, so don't look for that as a resource.
Yeah, we'll be setting that up very soon, Scott.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll be setting that up very soon. Sharon, I'll use the website as a place where I just dump every document that's, if we share, let's say if we share Rybrook's police reinvention, police reform and reinvention plan, I'll just put it on our website just so it's there for everyone to see. And it may be something that we discuss in subsequent meetings, stuff like that. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Thanks. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Mayor.
Hey,
Thank you.
Thank
Have a
you
great
all.
night.
thank you.
Have a good night, everybody.
Meeting.
Have a good night.
Good night. Thanyou.
Bye-bye.
Good night.